Okay, welcome everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into, well, a truly monumental figure, Steve Jobs.
Absolutely.
We're using Walter Isaacson's biography as our guide. Jobs actually initiated it himself, which is quite something.
It really is. And Isaacson got incredible access.
So our mission here is to kind of pull out the really key insights, go beyond the usual headlines about him.
Exactly. Understand what drove him, what shaped the tech world we all live in now. The biography gives this really rich, complex picture.
Brilliant, but intense.
Intense is definitely one word for it, yeah. We'll trace that whole arc from the beginning right through to the legacy.
Okay, let's do it. So Isaacson starts right at the beginning, yeah. His adoption, growing up in Silicon Valley.
He does. And, growing up there, surrounded by all that early electronic stuff, it definitely set a stage.
You almost feel like it had to lead somewhere.
Well, maybe not had to, but it was fertile ground for sure. What really jumps out is his curiosity, even back then, taking things apart.
That hands-on thing.
Understanding how they worked. It seems like that sparked something really fundamental in him.
And then the big one, Steve Wozniak. That friendship feels essential, doesn't it?
Oh, completely catalytic.
Mm-hmm.
Was this, like, pure engineering genius. He could build these amazing things.
The technical brains.
Totally. And Jobs, he had the vision, the market sense, and just this relentless drive to turn Woe's creations into actual products.
Products people would want. Or maybe didn't even know they wanted yet.
Exactly. Even their early stuff, like the blue boxes for making free phone calls.
A bit mischievous.
Yeah, but it showed that mix, right? Technical skill from Woe's and that kind of entrepreneurial, boundary-pushing spirit from Jobs. Woe's knew how, Jobs knew what and why for the user.
Before Apple really kicked off, he spent time at Atari, and then there was that trip to India. How did those fit in?
Well, Atari gave him a taste of the business side, I think. Video games, but still, commercial electronics.
Real-world experience.
Right. But India,
Mm.
that seems much more profound for his aesthetics, that search for enlightenment, simplicity.
You think that's where the clean Apple design comes from?
You can definitely see the roots of it there, that minimalism, that focus.
Yeah.
It feels connected to that whole experience.
So, okay, from Atari in India, we get to 1976. The garage. Apple begins.
It's the classic story, isn't it? The Apple, I was first kind of raw,
More for hobbyists.
pretty much. But then the Apple II in 77, that was the breakthrough. Much more user-friendly, color graphics.
That was the one that really took off.
Yeah, it was a huge leap for personal computers.
Yeah.
Apple's first real market success.
And then jumping ahead to 84, the Macintosh. Feels like another level entirely.
Oh, absolutely revolutionary. Jobs was obsessive about it. The design, yes, but crucially the user interface, making it easy graphical.
Drag and drop icons. Stuff we take for granted now.
Exactly. He wanted intuitive, elegant, and that 1984 Super Bowl ad,
Well, wow.
still iconic, totally audacious. Yeah. Setting up Apple as the rebel against the big gray IBM.
Big brother.
Precisely. It was visually stunning, provocative, and it captured the Mac's whole disruptive spirit perfectly. That wasn't just spin. It reflected Jobs' own view.
But that intensity, that drive for perfection,
Yeah.
it also meant he could be, well, difficult to work for. The biography covers that, quite frankly.
It does, yeah. It doesn't shy away from it. That focus often came across as really harsh, very direct.
The bozo comment is famous or infamous.
That's just one example. He could be incredibly critical, dismissive. Now, it definitely pushed teams to do amazing things they didn't think possible.
But at a cost.
But yeah, it absolutely created tension, resentment. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the trade-offs of that kind of uncompromising leadership. Is it worth it?
And that style, plus internal politics, power struggles, it leads to him being forced out in 1985 by John Scully, the CEO he hired.
Yeah, quite the turn of events. Must have been devastating, being kicked out of the company you basically
It's
created.
a huge blow.
Absolutely. But what's fascinating is what he did with that time away. It wasn't like he just disappeared.
Right, the wilderness years, as they're sometimes called. He started NXT, and then there was Pixar. Let's talk NXT first. It wasn't exactly a runaway success, commercially speaking.
No, it really wasn't. The NXT computer, the Cube, beautiful machine, very advanced, but expensive. It struggled to find a big market.
Aimed at education, right?
Primarily, yeah. But calling it a failure is wrong, I think, because technologically, it was hugely important.
So.
It was the birthplace for some key innovations. Things like object-oriented programming, which basically made software development much more flexible and powerful. That tech had a massive impact later on.
So the company itself didn't fly high, but the ideas did.
Exactly. The next step operating system, the development tools, incredibly influential. It was like a lab for future breakthroughs.
Did it? And Pixar, no, that's a different story.
Completely different outcome, yeah. He bought it from Lucasfilm. It was mostly a high-end graphics hardware company then.
Not making animated movies.
Not feature films, no. But Jobs saw the potential in the animation side, believed in the people there, like John Lasseter. He poured money in, kept it going when it was tough.
Showed real perseverance.
Absolutely. And then Toy Story in 1995 just changed everything.
A massive hit. Groundbreaking animation.
Revolutionized the industry. And suddenly, Jobs is a billionaire because of Pixar's IPO. It's an incredible turnaround. And ironically, it kind of paved the way for him to go back to Apple.
While all this is happening, the book also touches on his personal life. It wasn't straightforward, especially early on with his daughter, Lisa.
No, it wasn't. That was complicated. His initial denial of paternity, it's a difficult part of the story.
But they did reconcile later.
They did, yes.
Yeah.
The biography goes into how that relationship evolved over time. And it also covers his marriage to Lorene Powell in '91, which seems to have been a really important, stable anchor for him.
So a complex personal picture alongside the business drama.
Definitely. All these threads contributing to who he was.
Meanwhile, back at Apple, things weren't going so well without him, were they?
No, Apple really lost its way in the early to mid-90s. The product line became confusing, bloated.
Lacked focus.
Completely. They just didn't seem to have that clear, compelling vision anymore. They released things like the Newton message pad.
The Newton. Ahead of its time, maybe, but
clunky. Didn't quite work right. It just wasn't Apple. It didn't have that magic, that seamlessness Jobs insisted on. Company was drifting, frankly, losing market share.
Which makes his return in 1997 feel even more dramatic. Apple buys NXT, and bam, he's back.
Yeah.
Initially as interim CEO, ICEO.
With the ICO title, it was like injecting adrenaline straight into the company. He came back with absolute clarity.
What was the first move?
Drastic simplification. He slashed the product lines, got rid of projects he saw as distractions, focused everything back on a few core areas, and that relentless focus on design and user experience was back front and center.
And the first big product showing that shift was the iMac in '98.
Exactly. That colorful, all-in-one machine. It looked like nothing else. It was fun, easy to use. It basically shouted, Apple is back, and we're different.
A huge statement.
A massive statement.
Yeah.
It really turned the tide, psychologically and commercially.
Yeah.
It showed he could immediately reimpose that creative vision.
And his vision extended beyond just the computers themselves, the Apple stores.
That was a radical idea at the time, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, people were very skeptical. A computer company needs its own stores. Why? Gateway was trying stores and failing.
Right. The conventional wisdom was against it.
But Jobs got it. He knew the experience mattered. He wanted control over how Apple products were presented, sold, supported.
More than just a shop.
Exactly. Places people could try things out, get help, feel the brand. It turned out to be absolutely brilliant, a huge part of their success. And then, 2001. iTunes.
Changing the music industry forever.
Fundamentally reshaping it, yeah. Making digital music legal, easy, and accessible. It laid the groundwork for what came next.
Which was the iPod later that same year. 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Yeah.
Hard to remember a time before it now.
It's almost impossible to overstate its impact, isn't it? So elegant, so simple to use. It just worked. And connected seamlessly with iTunes.
The whole ecosystem. It solved a real problem for people wanting to carry their music around. It cemented Apple's move into consumer electronics beyond the Mac and showed Jobs' incredible knack for anticipating what people wanted.
And then, the iPhone in 2007. The secrecy around its development was legendary, according to the book.
Intense secrecy, yeah. Because it was such a huge leap. What made it revolutionary wasn't just one thing.
Is the combination.
Exactly. Merging the iPod, a phone, and a real internet device into one thing. But the killer part was that multi-touch interface. So intuitive.
Pinch to zoom.
Pinch to zoom, scrolling. It felt like magic. And then the App Store opened up later.
Yeah.
That just changed the game completely. It wasn't just a better phone. It redefined what a phone was, a total paradigm shift.
And he wasn't done. 2010, the iPad arrives. Again, lots of people asking, do we really need this?
Yeah, the giant iPod Touch critique. People wondered where it fits between a phone and a laptop.
But it found its place.
It absolutely did. Media consumption, reading, games, education, creative apps. It carved out a huge market, basically creating the modern tablet category. Again, Apple defining a new space.
It's an incredible run of products in that second stint at Apple. But during all this success, he was also fighting cancer, starting back in 2003.
Yes, that diagnosis came relatively early in his second tenure, pancreatic cancer.
And the biography covers his initial decision to try alternative treatments before surgery.
It does. He delayed surgery for about 9 months, trying diets, acupuncture, other methods. It's a really difficult part of the story. He apparently later regretted that delay.
A very personal, complex decision.
It really highlights that. Well, that intense self-belief, maybe even stubbornness that defined so much of his life. Trusting his own intuition, even against strong medical advice. A poignant aspect, for sure.
But even as his health failed in later years, his dedication to Apple didn't waver. He was involved in planning the new campus.
Deeply involved. The spaceship campus, Apple Park. He obsessed over the details, the glass, the layout,
Yeah.
even when he was very ill.
Pouring his energy into Apple's future.
Absolutely. It really shows his enduring commitment to the company, right to
Wow.
the end, leaving his mark quite literally on his future home.
He passed away on October 5th, 2011. Looking back at the whole story, the biography paints this picture of, well, immense impact.
Undeniable. His relentless drive, that uncompromising vision, even his difficult personality traits, they all fused together to reshape technology, design, entire industries, music, phones, computing. His fingerprints are everywhere.
So, wrapping up our deep dive here, drawing on Isaacson's detailed account. It's a lot to take in. The brilliance, the flaws, the sheer force of will.
It really is a multifaceted portrait, no simple answers.
So here's a thought to leave you with. Considering everything we've touched on, the innovation, the intensity, the legacy, what single aspect of Steve Jobs' approach strikes you as most relevant or perhaps most thought-provoking in our world today with technology changing so fast? What lessons, good or bad, can we actually draw from his unique journey? Something to mull over.